Hello, everyone, and welcome. You are watching Eagle News America. I'm Anna Cui, coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada. It is Thursday, the 10th day of June, 2021. Tonight, we have updates from our correspondents across the country. Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmut in Washington, D.C. joins us this evening.
A hospital pharmacist has been sentenced for attempt to spoil hundreds of COVID vaccine doses.
In Union Township, Bureau Chief Carlo Valdez reports about a 70-year-old killed on a New Jersey golf course, and now the nation's first fatal lightning strike this year. For ABC Sports, Julianne Liu Evangelista gives us NBA updates. Bureau Chief Joanne Soriano in New York takes us to the Philippine Consulate General in New York for a Barong and Terno exhibit. For ABC Food, learn how to make strawberry icebox cake. Horticulturist and EBC friend Grace Evangelista in Swarthmore shares with us the benefits of growing our own vegetable garden. And for our roundtable, it will be about herbs and spice and everything nice. Our coverage begins now. Back from her debut international mission as Vice President, Kamala Harris catches flack from Republican critics, accusing her of not taking the migration crisis seriously enough, but also from vocal progressives frustrated about border policy. The two-sided pylon reflects the protracted and difficult nature of the nation's immigration problem, which has vexed administrations for decades. Vice President Harris's trip to Guatemala and Mexico marks her biggest stumble yet since she became President Joe Biden's deputy. Texas Republican Senator John Cornyn describes her trip as a missed opportunity. Cornyn says Harris is avoiding the point of failure in our immigration system, which is at the border. Less than a decade ago, then President Barack Obama faced a humanitarian crisis at the border and struggled to come up with an effective response to handle thousands of people, including unaccompanied minors, fleeing violence and poverty in their home countries. His successor, Donald Trump, famously vowed to build a border wall and was fiercely criticized for controversial detentions. Now it's President Biden's turn to handle undocumented immigration. In Guatemala, Harris says she would remain focused on addressing the root causes of illegal migration, poverty and crime, rather than the grand gestures of a hypothetical border visit. Detentions of undocumented migrants along the U.S.-Mexico border, including unaccompanied minors, hit a 15-year high in April. Nearly 180,000 people were intercepted, more than 80% of them coming from Mexico, or the so-called Northern Triangle of Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. Richard Whitman, professor of politics and international relations at the University of Kent, says the forthcoming G7 meeting is a chance for the West to reboot itself following the pandemic. The emphasis of the meeting will be on vaccines and the environment.
I think probably the most eye-catching initiative that is likely to come through, if it's a successful summit, is that the G7 members will pledge to make sure that there is full vaccine coverage across the globe by the end of 2022. So putting in place the money and the means to make that global vaccination possible.
Professor Whitman adds the most dramatic announcement probably is the focus on coal. World Health Organization Europe Director Hans Kluge gives an online press briefing urging caution over the summer to avoid a resurgence of COVID-19 infections in the region. Kluge calls on the public to stick to protective measures even as vaccinations rise.
Over the course of last summer, cases gradually rose in younger age groups and then moved into older age groups, contributing to a devastating resurgence, lockdowns, and loss of life in the autumn and winter of 2020. Let's not make that mistake again. As vaccination coverage increases, we need to stick firmly to protective measures to suppress the virus. This needs to happen even as cases decline. A combination of public health measures and vaccination, not one or the other, is the way out of this pandemic. Just as in 2020, Cases have declined as we enter the summer period, but it is no time to cut down on the public health response to COVID-19. If we are to avoid another resurgence after the summer, we have to take last year's lessons aboard. Act fast on signals of increasing cases, expanding testing and sequencing, stepping up contact tracing, and rapidly attaining very high vaccine uptake in the most vulnerable populations.
State Department Coordinator for Global COVID Response and Health Security, Gail Smith, says the 500 million Pfizer doses the United States will purchase to donate to poorer countries are tools for ending a pandemic, not tools for creating pressure or trying to exert influence.
Well, I think, we believe, and I think the G7 believes, that it is our role to do two things. One is make these vaccines available, to donate them, particularly to those countries that can't afford them. And the second is to provide them on the basis of no expectation. These are tools for ending a pandemic. These are not tools for creating pressure or trying to exert influence. You'll forgive me if I don't want to get ahead of the summit itself, but I think we need a forward-leaning commitment through the remainder of this year and into next year. And additionally, whatever we may announce collectively at the G7, we're all going to have to continue to up our game to get this pandemic to an end. 500 million vaccines are not going to appear in August, right? It's going to be a subset of those. I think it's in the range of 50 million will be the first availability. And there will be more vaccines every month. As they come available, we will move them out. And then as they land in country, there will be plans to deploy them through national vaccine plans. These are going to be allocated to the 92 COVAX AMC countries, advanced market commitment countries, and countries in the African Union. That's a total of approximately 100 countries. The doses that we are sharing from our national supply, so that's the 80 million doses, those are a combination of J&J and Moderna. And then the 500 million that the president just announced are Pfizer.
Meanwhile, Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra, reminds healthcare providers of their signed agreements to cover the administration of COVID-19 vaccines free of charge to patients, and group health plans and health insurers of their legal requirement to provide coverage of COVID-19 vaccinations and diagnostic testing without patients shouldering any cost. In a letter, Secretary Becerra reiterates that COVID-19 vaccines and their administration are free for any individual living in the United States, regardless of their insurance or immigration status. Currently, all providers administering COVID-19 vaccines are required to sign the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, COVID-19 Vaccination Program Provider Agreement. Among other requirements, this agreement states that providers must administer COVID-19 vaccines at no out-of-pocket cost to patients. To ensure no surprise billing, providers may not require that patients have additional medical services to receive their COVID-19 vaccination, nor can they charge any type of fee if COVID-19 vaccination is the sole medical service provided. The letter further states that HHS recognizes that there are costs associated with administering the vaccines, from staff training to vaccine storage. For these expenses, providers may not bill patients, but can seek reimbursement through Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, or other applicable coverage. Most group health plans and health insurers are statutorily required to cover COVID-19 vaccines recommended by the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention without cost sharing. Here's today's COVID-19 numbers. According to the Coronavirus Resource Center of Johns Hopkins University in Medicine, as of 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday, June 10, 2021, the number of cases of COVID-19 reported worldwide is now more than 174,578,000. Top three on the list of countries with recorded cases: U.S. with over 33.4 million, followed by India over 29.1 million, and Brazil over 17.1 million. This virus has now already claimed more than 3,764,000 lives worldwide. Again, top three countries with the most number of COVID-19 related deaths are US, more than 598,000, Brazil, more than 479,000, and India, more than 359,000. Total vaccine doses administered worldwide is now at 2,240,989,102. Up next, updates from Washington and New Jersey. Eagle News America continues.
Factual,
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
timely information, balanced, not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Agila Pilipinas! A one-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Agila Provincia.
Sa mga taga-Iloilo at Antique, mapiyang
Tune into Mata ng Agila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Agila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to Exchange, our health outdoor.
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Anna Cui in Las Vegas. On January 26, 2021, a Wisconsin pharmacist agreed to plead guilty to charges filed in federal court that he attempted to render hundreds of doses of COVID-19 vaccine ineffective. 2 days ago, June 8, was his sentencing. EBC's Eliza Gonzalez-Monglikmot joins us tonight with the story. Eliza?
Thanks, Anna. A good Thursday evening to you and a safe Friday morning to our friends on the other side of the globe. Yes, Anna, that Wisconsin pharmacist is 46-year-old Stephen R. Brandenburg of Grafton. He has been sentenced to 3 years in prison for tampering with COVID-19 vaccine doses at the hospital where he worked. Brandenburg pleads guilty to 2 counts of attempting to tamper with consumer products with reckless disregard for the risk that another person would be placed in danger of death or bodily injury. Now, DOJ's release states that, according to court documents, Brandenburg purposefully removed a box of COVID-19 vaccine vials manufactured by Moderna from a hospital refrigeration unit during 2 successive overnight shifts in late December 2020. These vaccines, as we know, must be stored at specific cold temperatures to remain viable. Now, according to his plea agreement, Brandenburg states that he was skeptical of vaccines in general, but specifically the Moderna vaccine. And he had communicated his beliefs about vaccines to his co-workers. Now, Brandenburg admits that after leaving the vaccines out for several hours, each of those 2 nights, he would return the vaccines to the refrigerator so the hospital's vaccine clinic would use them the following day. Now, before the full extent of Brandenburg's conduct was discovered, there had already been 57 people who received doses of the vaccine from these vials. Now, Acting Assistant Attorney General Brian N. Boynton of the Justice Department's Civil Division says this act of purposely attempting to spoil vaccine doses during a national public health emergency is a crime. A very serious one. Now for some weather update, it is 87 degrees Fahrenheit or 31 degrees Celsius here in the nation's capital. Precipitation is at 80%, humidity at 88%, with winds traveling at 8 miles per hour. In Washington, D.C., Eliza Gonzalez, Manglik Mott, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Anna.
88% humidity. Very sticky over there.
It's muggy.
Yes, I can imagine. Now, you mentioned, Eliza, that the release states that Brandenburg is a COVID-19 vaccine skeptic and specifically didn't favor the Moderna jab. What was the FDA's reaction to this mindset?
Well, Anna, Assistant Commissioner for Criminal Investigations Catherine Hermsen of the FDA says that the FDA has ensured that the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine meets the agency's rigorous standards for safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing quality. She also warns that those who knowingly tamper with this vaccine place American patients' health at risk, and that Brandenburg's sentencing should serve as a reminder that this kind of illicit tampering activity will not and should not be tolerated. Anna?
Exactly. Now, aside from the 3-year prison sentence, what else is Brandenburg ordered to do?
Anna, in addition to the 3-year prison sentence, the release states that the U.S. District Judge Brett Ludwig orders Brandenburg to serve 3 years of supervised release and to pay approximately $83,800 in restitution to the hospital. Pretty hurtful fine. Anna?
Yes, it's a pretty hefty fine. Thank you, Eliza, for your report. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. We'll talk to you again later in our roundtable. I'm sure I'm going to learn something from you about herbs tonight.
I'll see you later, Anna.
We go now to New Jersey, where the nation's first fatal lightning strike this year. Bureau Chief Carlo Valdez with the details.
A devastating news today as police identify 70-year-old man Michael Ward, who was killed in the country's first lightning strike this year at this New Jersey golf course. According to the police, Michael Ward was found unconscious and not breathing about 3:47 p.m. on Wednesday near the 7th hole at the Burlington County Country Club. Medical examiners say that it was evident from the scene that the male had been struck by lightning. According to John Geninius, who is the lightning safety specialist with the National Lightning Safety Council, he states in an email, "This is the first fatality in New Jersey since September 7, 2012, and the 14th in New Jersey since 2006. Since 2006, there have been 11 golf-related lightning fatalities in the U.S. And as for coronavirus stats and numbers, New Jersey reports of 247 new positive PCR tests, pushing the total to 889,622. Sadly, New Jersey is reporting 7 new confirmed deaths, pushing the total to 23,637 lives lost. In Union Township, New Jersey, Carlo Valdez, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Carlo, for that report. Still to come, ABC Sports and a glimpse at a Terno and Barong exhibit at the Philippine Consulate General in New York. Eagle News America continues.
Can you feel it? Do you like it? Do you want it?
So good. I love it.
Okay, then buckle up, put the pedal to the metal, and let's ride. Rev.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
As the coronavirus pandemic adds uncertainty to our lives, misinformation is stoking fear and anxiety. We at NHK World Japan have launched an action plan to ensure you have the vital information you need to keep you and your family safe. We will give you tools to protect yourself from the virus's economic and social impacts. Our expert journalists across the country and around the globe will break through the jargon, bringing you accurate and up-to-date news. We are committed to providing international viewers with information about the latest achievements and challenges facing those tackling the public health crisis. In a time of unprecedented change, tune into NHK World Japan, a station you can trust.
Welcome back. You're watching Eagle News America, and it's time for EBC Sports. In Boston, here's Eagle News correspondent Julianne Liu Evangelista for today's NBA update.
The Denver Nuggets selected Nikola Jokic as the 41st pick in the 2014 NBA draft. 7 years later, the Serbian center became the first second-round draft pick to be named the league's most valuable player, beating out Steph Curry and Joel Embiid for the award. Jokic posted a career best in points, assists, and tied a career best in rebounds. The three-time All-Star became the first center to win MVP since Shaquille O'Neal in 2000. His biggest supporters to his incredible journey to the NBA, his family.
And my family, they live every game with me. They live every moment, every practice with me. So they are probably the most happy family right now. You know. So and like I said, they are with me since my day one. You know, I will say my dad who brought me to the practice first time. Even I cried. My mom, who is always next to me, who is always in my mind, who is always talking to me like some kind of telepathy. Is that how you say it? I don't know. My wife, who is with me, and she's living every day with me, and my brothers who really wanted to be NBA players, but they didn't. But they show me what to do and what not to do. So it's really it's a really thing that I say I cannot. I'm thanking, like I said, I'm thanking them because I got a trophy, but I need to thank them every day what they're doing for me. So.
Brad Stevens coached his last game in the Boston Celtics' first-round series loss to the Brooklyn Nets and was promoted to replace Danny Ainge as president of basketball operations, who retired after 18 years at the helm. Stevens will lead the search for his successor. Leading candidates of the league's most prestigious jobs includes Jason Kidd, Chauncey Billups, and former Atlanta Hawks coach Lloyd Pierce.
You know, obviously it's an honor to be trusted with this responsibility by Wick, by Pags, and then to get a chance to learn from and work alongside Danny all of this time. One of my big fears in coming here was the day that Danny decided he would step away because when you're in coaching and, you ride the waves of each win, each loss, each bad practice drill, each thing that doesn't go your way or does go your way, it's so important to be surrounded by people that, have a great understanding of the challenges, that truly love the joys that come with it, but also find great joy in overcoming the toughest of days. And Danny has provided that support as my boss, of constant empowerment for the last 8 years. And
we'll give more updates and highlights on the NBA playoffs here in Eagle News. In Boston, Massachusetts, Julianne Louis Evangelista, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Julianne. Tonight, we are so in for a treat. Our New York Bureau Chief, Joanne Soriano, takes us to the Philippine Consulate General there for a Terno and Barong exhibit as the office begins its Philippine Independence Anniversary celebrations.
The Philippine Consulate General in New York is showcasing an exhibit entitled The Rebirth of Filipino Terno and Barong, marking the start of the month-long celebration of the 123rd anniversary of Philippine independence. As described by the Consul General, the title Rebirth is fitting, as this was the first in-person event held at the Philippine Center since the start of the pandemic.
The Terno, which literally means that shape, the one-piece long dress distinguished by its stiff, flat, and oversized belt sleeves, popularly termed butterfly sleeves, originated from the bottle of saya, which literally means trouser skirt. On the other hand, the barong, which is an abbreviation of Barong Tagalog, started from a simple, collarless cotton shirt, which transformed into the lightweight, hand-woven, close-neck collared shirt, usually made of pusi, piña, and other fibers that we recognize today. What makes the Terno and Barong iconic is the fact that both reflect the resilience and versatility of the Philippines. The Terno and Barong have evolved through the centuries into the modern iterations that we see here. And as the Filipino has achieved the stature of being the quintessential global citizen, we will definitely see the Terno and Barong continue to be redesigned and reimagined through the years.
The curator discussed the journey of the Terno and Barong in Philippine history. He said, in particular, he wanted children to see this collection so they can feel proud of their heritage.
The rebirth of this Terno and Barong really inspired me because of the young and the children, and because I feel that, sometimes we lost touch in bringing all our kids to showcase this kind of exhibit. And it's very important that we always pass on to our children what we have learned. Terno come from Barot Saya, as we all know. The First Lady, Mrs. Imelda Romualdez Marcos, made it so famous back in the 60s and the 70s. And it's such an iconic thing. So every fashion designers up to this point, including Chanel, have copied, the butterfly sleeves.
And it's their kind of like inspiration every time. That's exquisite look of Imelda Marcos.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The curator also spoke to us on why he selected some pieces for this exhibit.
This is more on a traditional and more authentic barong, as you notice it. That's why I put this in the very front, because this is made of piña/husi, so it's a very delicate fabric. This was embroidered in Laguna. And if I turn the mannequin in this part, it's more interesting because the back of this has more detailed. But this is my favorite one, very authentic. It's more classy and it represents the Philippines very well. The reason I like this one is one of my favorite terno, owned by my no other friend, Tita Abby Pimo, one of the iconic women here in New York. And when I met her almost 20 years ago, I always loved the way she dressed. So for me, this represents very well the ocean, and at the same time the coral reef of the Philippines, especially the Palawan and all of that. This is the best terno here tonight because It's very wearable and it's lightweight and you can move wherever you want to go, so it's easier.
For award-winning designer Ia Ferroni, she shared why it is important for her to continue introducing Filipino products to the market.
For me, I always elevate the Filipino products. I always try to bring any Philippine-made products also to the global market and mainstream America for them to know how beautiful the craftsmanship of Filipinos. It's just up to us to bring it out there, and that's what I'm trying to do.
The exhibit will run through the end of June. From the Philippine Center in New York, this is Joanne Soriano, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Joanne, for that beautiful report. Absolutely lovely creations. There's certainly a Barong style for everyone. Now, up next, EBC Food and today's Roundtable about herbs and spice and everything nice. Eagle News America continues.
The magnificent, the breathtaking, ang pangmalakasan, the Philippine Arena, baby! Let's go!
Nandito po tayo ngayon sa Philippine Arena! Yeah!
Dito, 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 dito sa arena. Presto, presto. Nakitaping ng Net 25 para sa happy time. Yo, ding dong, CGM, Tutsi, kompleto kami, malalakas kami. Oh, wala na ulan! Halika na! Ito na ulan na ulan!
Alvin Chorizo! Alvin, ba't nandito ka?
Ang mga bangko ay kaagapay ng negosyo. Ngunit katulad ng lahat ng industriya, binago rin ng COVID-19 ang mga proseso na may kinalaman sa bangko. Quarantine restrictions and other safety protocols have required banks to shift their operations almost entirely online. Mahigit ng 1 taon ang nakakaraan mula nung nagsimula ang pandemya. Paano ba nakakatulong ang serbisyo ng mga bangko sa pagninegosyo? Today, we'll find out how one bank is catering to its customers in the new normal. Tatalakayin ito ni Randy Bernardino, ang ating OFB correspondent mula sa Las Vegas, kasama ng ating mga bisita mula sa Security Bank. All this in this episode of Open for Business.
Welcome back. You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Anna Clee here in Las Vegas. Now, let's talk dessert. Our Sacramento team again shares with us this quick and easy recipe for strawberry icebox cake. Let's take a look. That looks very good, and they weren't kidding. It was very quick recipe, easy to follow. Now, today is National Herbs and Spices Day, and to celebrate, here's a quick tutorial from EBC friend Grace Evangelista on how to grow our own vegetable garden. Let's discover the benefits of eating food grown from your backyard straight to your table.
Welcome. So today we'll be talking about vegetable gardening and tips and tricks for having a successful garden. Before we start, let's talk about why we should garden. Since we've been quarantined at home, food security is even more essential than ever before. Having a garden ensures that you'll be able to have a source of food for your family, even if the supermarkets don't have any. Food quality is also improved when you grow it yourself. You pick it when you use it, so it's extra fresh. You can also be sure that there are little to no pesticides in your food because you know exactly what you did to it. Gardening also has many health benefits. Because you're constantly moving, it builds strength in your body and keeps it flexible. The increased sun exposure also helps you to produce vitamin D. Just make sure not to get too much sun and use sunscreen when needed. Gardening can also have positive effects on your immunity and mental health. Last but not least, gardening is environmentally friendly. Because you're only eating and picking what you need when you need it, you know that it's fresh. This is great for you, but also for the environment, because this means that there is little to no food waste. Also, this means that the kale you're eating didn't have to travel all the way from the other side of the country to get to you. Now that we know why we should garden, let's talk about some garden tips and tricks. I'd like to preface this by saying that all the information I will be discussing today is for Agricultural Zone 7A in Southeast Pennsylvania. This just means that if you're a little north of me, you might start things a little later, and if you're south of me, you might start things a little earlier. Here are some crops from fall and early spring that may be a little late to plant now, but it's something you might want to think about later in the year. This is garlic, and it was planted last fall after the first frost, so approximately the first week of November. They will overwinter and start sprouting in around February and should be ready for harvest by the end of June. These peas were put in mid-March. Peas are a vining plant, so a trellis or something for it to grow on is a must. These kale plants were actually planted last fall. Although it's something that we can start right now, I wanted to show you that some crops can actually survive if we have a mild enough winter. Other plants that have had survive and overwinter include collard greens and arugula. So right now we're still in the cooler growing part of the season, so you can only put out our cold crops. So what are cold crops? They are anything that likes being in 30 to 40 degree temperatures and can even tolerate a light frost. You can start planting these when the nights start being consistently in the 40s. For me, I started in about mid to late March planting these. Some of the things I planted included lettuce, kale, radish, arugula, and spinach. This is what they look like after a month of planting seed. The great thing about these are that you are able to get your garden started early in the year. However, once it starts getting warmer, germination on these things might not be as good. Okay, so let's now talk about warm crops. Here in Southeast Pennsylvania, these would go out in about mid-May. It's really temperature dependent, and what you should be looking out for is nights consistently in the 60s. This would apply to things like tomatoes, okra, beans, pepper, squash, and anything tropical. However, just because you can only put them out in mid-May doesn't mean you can't get a head start on growing them inside. Here are my tomato seeds that I started growing inside about a month ago. I don't have anything fancy, just a wire shelf, long fluorescent lights, and a cover from a plastic tote to keep everything from getting wet. Then, in a month from now, I'll have plants big enough to have a head start in the growing season. Just make sure that when you bring plants from inside to outside, that you acclimate them slowly. Extreme changes in temperature or light intensity can really shock plants. For example, for these tomatoes, what I would do when I first bring them out is keep them in a shady spot for the first few days. Then they get used to the brighter light from the sun and can be put out in full sun afterwards. This is called hardening off. Next, let's talk about perennial crops. These are plants that come back every year and you don't have to keep replanting them. So these include asparagus, strawberries, rhubarb, raspberries, and blueberries. The great thing about these is that you plant them once and they can feed you and your family for years. Last but not least, there are always foods you can grow from scraps or food from the grocery store. Here are some things that have grown from things I bought for food. This is a sayote, which sprouted on my counter, and this is a piece of ginger that you can put in a pot when it gets warmer. You can also replant hydroponic lettuce or herbs that you get from the store. Other things I've grown from scraps include celery and sweet potato vine. My last tip is just to try things out. Many of the things I know is just from years of doing it. Do what works for you and always try new things. You can always ask other gardeners their experiences, and we're always happy to share information. I hope that this has piqued your curiosity about gardening and encourages you to start a garden of your own.
Thank you so much, Grace, for that report. I love your garden, so big and so many different things, and you talked about all the good benefits. And you would think that Eliza, right, for our roundtable here, you would think that we've seen enough gardening videos that have been shared with us with our from our ABC friends since the lockdown, and you would think that would be enough to really push me. I keep saying whenever I watch these videos, I'm going to try it, and still to this day, I have not tried it. How about you, Eliza? Have you grown your own edible plant?
Well, Anna, if you remember, we've seen this video a year ago when, a year ago in 2020 when amid the quarantine times, right? And I tried, after watching that, and I kept trying, I keep trying, and so far, Anna, the only edible plant I have kept alive are my spring onions. You just put them in soil and water them every day, and they sprout like mushrooms. But right now, I'm trying to grow lemongrass from a glass, actually glass filled with water, a glass vase. I just put water in it, no soil at all. How about you, Anna?
See, that would be the thing for me. If I was ever to try, it would be something that can grow in water, because I'm definitely afraid of any like worms or anything like that. So I think of soil and planting something, and that's the first thing that comes to mind is that I'm gonna see little worms crawling around, and that's what discourages me. Yes. Now, what about do you know anyone who there in your part of the world who has vegetable garden like Grace?
I know. A lot tried this year. A lot of my friends tried their hand in gardening, but one person that I know who is very good at it is my mother-in-law. She really has a gift in growing plants, be they edible or not. Anything she puts in a pot, it grows. So, but no matter how she tries to teach me,
you see, me and you are alike in that way, because I think it really, what's the term? They call it green thumbs, right? I think you really have to have green thumbs to do it. And some people are just made to, like you said, I mean, they can plant anything and it'll grow. And for me, I have yet to try it. Maybe start with something like you mentioned, onions, grow it in water.
Yes,
I know I have friends. Go ahead, Eliza.
Go ahead, Anna.
I know I have friends that tried regrowing bok choy, and they showed me pictures. So, and I like bok choy, so maybe I'll try that. I'll try with something simple, and as you remember, all throughout the lockdown, we've seen even our correspondents who have tried different things, right? I think I want to say Mila basil. I think she tried the basil, and I love basil. Yes. Her big basil. I wonder how her basil is now. Probably multiplied. Now let's talk about herbs and spice. Eliza, what's your favorite herb or spice when it comes to cooking?
Okay, I have a couple that I really, really, really love, and I can't do without them. They're always in my refrigerator or in my kitchen. I love ginger. I love turmeric. I don't know have you tried turmeric? It's like ginger, but it's like yellower.
Yellower, yes. Exactly. They look exactly like ginger, and we know the benefits of that, right? I think it's a natural anti-inflammatory. So
yes, it's very good for the joints. I love mint and rosemary and basil and cilantro and lemongrass. It's my favorite right now because Anna, they're just very versatile to eat. Like you could eat them, you could drink them as tea. You can use them as essential oil, but that's another story. As of the moment, I'm brewing right now. Try this mix, Anna. Lemongrass, turmeric, and ginger. It makes your house smell so good. And then, of course, you drink it after you smell it.
So you just put it in water and let it sit for some time?
You boil it.
Ah, okay. You see, you can tell who doesn't cook.
Let me try that. I'll just let it sit. How about you, Anna?
I have for spices, rosemary. I recently learned this recipe it's such a simple recipe, just on pork chops. You cook it in, it's not very healthy because it tells you to cook it in butter, and then you add lemon and rosemary, and it's so simple, but that rosemary really adds to the flavor. So that's one of my go-to, rosemary. And I've been trying to cut down on sodium altogether. So I've tried different spices to flavor our food. Yep, paprika is the one, because I do like my food a little spicy, but not too spicy to where you can't eat it anymore. So paprika is one of the ones that I've really learned to love lately. And of course you see those no salt seasoning spices, blended with lemon and garlic and peppercorn. Those are very good.
They said if you want to cut down on salt, just sprinkle your food with lemon pepper.
Yes.
And it works. It's a good substitute. And have you tried cayenne? You said you want cayenne. You like spice? Is it too spicy for you?
I have tried that, the cayenne pepper, and just a little sprinkle here and there just to give it flavor. So I have tried that too. And what else?
What about saffron?
Okay, saffron I haven't tried. What would I think I've heard people add that to rice. Is that right? Like what would you use it for?
The rice porridge.
Oh, yes. Oh, okay, that's that red. It's that red.
It's like red strands. Then you sprinkle it in your porridge with, and if you cook your porridge or your lugaw with turmeric, it makes it look really, really yellow too. So it
gives it that yellowish color to it.
It's more appetizing too, I know, to look at and to eat. Well,
and to eat.
How about Thai chili pepper? You like Thai chili pepper?
Thai chili pepper, yes. I do like that. I think paprika is, paprika, tomato. That's like a crushed sweet chili peppers. I think that's what it is, right? So I do like that too. Now, what about you, Liza? I know some people, do you keep your spices in, nice display of bottles? Do you see those, or do you just keep them in their regular?
You know those racks before? It's a rack,
Yes.
and then you keep. I used to have that, but not anymore. Now they're just in Ziplocs. It's easier to store, and it's a space saver. So
There you
it's
go,
there in
right?
Ziplocs with labels.
Now, I don't judge me, anybody, but it's just last year, right, during the pandemic, where we looked more in our pantry, and we had more time to go through our pantry. And believe it or not, I didn't know that. I guess there's expiration dates for everything. And what about you, Eliza? Before I share mine, what was the oldest, spice or herb that you found in your pantry the last time you cleaned it out? Let's see who wins on who had the oldest.
I think
oldest bottle of herbs.
I don't know if they're. It's not. Oh, sorry, it's not spice. It's sesame seeds.
Yes.
I had a bag of sesame seeds way in the back of my cabinet. I think they were 3 years old.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. No. My kids were laughing at me because when we were cleaning out sometime last year, of course, during the lockdown, and I think the oldest, like I said, EBC family, Eagle News viewers, do not judge me. I think
No
the
judgment.
oldest one was from, I want to say it was like 2012. So 8 years. Yeah, it was 8 years. I mean, it was like
How old was Victoria?
Victoria in 2012 was she was what like 9 years old. So yes, I mean that goes to show you. I mean, I think you've heard me multiple times saying that I'm not a cook. I don't cook much, but I do enjoy cooking with my family, maybe twice a week. So it becomes a family thing, and I think that's when it becomes more enjoyable for me, is when we do it as a family, put everybody to work.
It's the experience.
Yes. Yes. What about you, Eliza? When I know you have two girls, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 women now, I should say.
They're graduating tomorrow from high school.
Oh, so just tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes, tomorrow. So congratulations to my twin girls, and to Victoria too. She graduated last week. Congratulations to you.
Thank you, Eliza. Well, happy cooking to you, and I will try boiling turmeric and ginger and what was the other? And lemongrass. And lemongrass, and fill our home with that fragrance. Thank you, Eliza, for joining me in this roundtable. Now, it's time to thank our frontline workers, first responders, and essential workers with a much-deserved round of applause. We appreciate you for all that you do. And as we end our program, watch this video from our Hawaii team as they join the rest of the world, remembering the victims of COVID-19 and standing by the families and communities as we move forward with courage and resilience. The pandemic may have claimed the lives of more than 500 people in the Aloha State, but more than 1.5 million residents have already received the vaccine, which is at least 54% of the state's population. That is today's Eagle News America. Thank you for joining us. I'm Anna Kui, and we live in interesting times.
Start up your weekday mornings with edutainment, news, and information kasama ang inyong paboritong Net25 shows. Samahan ang inyong paboritong morning barkada sa Pambansang Almusal at 5 a.m. Tatalakayin mga pangunahing balita sa pagtutulungan ng Radyo Agila at Net25. Samahan si Weng de la Fuente sa